Give it up for Josh King. Come to the stage. One of my all-time favorite storyteller. Thank you, brother.
There you go.
Thank you, brother. The stage is yours.
Let's call it give it all, not give it once. Give it twice. You got to give it all. I think I'm done. Man, you just got 50, 60 people in a room hearing you talk and you want to stop doing that? Fucking ridiculous. Anyway, who controls the green red lights? Who? Okay, good. I was going to say, Chris, get him. Fucking take him over. Dan asked me to tell a story today at the last Give It All. And so I was thinking to myself, which story am I going to tell? And I realized I was going to be in Bali, the central of digital nomadism and online entrepreneurship. So I thought that I would tell the story of the time that I generated about $115 million while traveling the world, living out of my backpack. Is that a good story? Would that relate to the people here in Bali today? I think so. Good, because it's the only story I have. It's all the stories together. I'm going to try to not miss a single detail here. It might sound like I'm bragging, but very quickly you'll realize that I'm going to go through a lot of successes and I'm going to go through a lot of failures. There's going to be way more failures than successes. I want to be very clear there. And there's one word that sort of encapsulates everything I'll talk about today, which is perseverance. And there's a phrase, perseverance does not guarantee success, but giving up guarantees failure. Now, that is very, very true, and I want everyone to, if you haven't realized that, it's very important to understand. So we'll dive in. And no good journey is good without an origin story, so I think we'll start there. My mom and dad met in England. After 3 weeks, they got married. After 3 months, they got divorced. I snuck right in the middle there. They always used to tell me I was made in England, born in Canada. And we were dirt poor, very, very poor. Anyone know what food stamps are? Food stamps, handful of people. So food stamps is when the government looks at all your finances and says, dude, you're so fucking poor, we're going to give you this certificate so you can go to the supermarket and not die. You can get some food. My dad was so poor, he was an immigrant, so he didn't get the food stamps right away. He had to apply for them. And I remember the day that we got approved for food stamps, it was like we won the lottery. Before then, we literally were living in a place called White Rock, British Columbia, Canada. Lots of fishing there. So we would fish every single day for crabs and fish to cook, to not go hungry. We got the food stamps and we could finally go to the supermarket and get some cereal. We were so poor that to afford rent, we would have to knock around all the mansions in White Rock. Me and him, I was maybe 8, 9 years old when we started doing this, knock on the doors and we would offer landscaping and taking care of their gardens, massive fucking gardens, in exchange for rent. So up until I was maybe 15, 16 years old, I was doing heavy labor before and after school just to pay for rent. We didn't pay $1 in rent. We just did heavy manual labor to live in the basement apartments of these mansions in White Rock, British Columbia. And I was interested in a few things. Basketball, I loved basketball. I was really good relative to people around me. And then I realized we did a tournament in Las Vegas, USA, and a bunch of 6'8" black dudes started dunking on me. I'm like, no, I'm not built for this. I was also interested in music. I was the lead singer of like a heavy/punk rock band. We were okay. We were doing little mini tours around Canada, but our very last show, when I realized music wasn't for us, we wrapped up a song, and in the middle of the silence between the song, an old lady comes to the front of the stage and says, "Do you play any polka?" Polka, for those that don't know, is music for old people. We were a heavy rock band. That was not very fun to hear. I also got into modeling and acting. I was doing like runway and photo shoots. And then, I realized I didn't have genetics from God with chiseled abs and perfect jawlines, so I said, I'm out. The last thing I did in Canada really was construction. So I moved up North Canada. I don't know if anyone knows Canada here, but Fort McKay. I was doing concreting and doing traffic signs, highway signs, outside, negative 40 degrees Celsius every single day. Couldn't take your gloves off for more than a handful of minutes, so you get frostbite on your fingers. And then something fucking crazy happened. I was doing my concreting. It was real fucking cold, and I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing? And so I grabbed a globe, and I spun it. And I'm like, wherever this lands, I'm going to move to and start my life over. First it landed on Russia. I'm like, that's a mulligan. Well, that's just a test run. Let's try again. Oh, fuck, middle of the Amazon rainforest. These days I would say yes to that, but back then that was scary. One more time. Little town, Surfer's Paradise in Australia. That sounds cool. Surfer's Paradise. I actually knew somebody that was in Surfer's Paradise at the time. Yeah, fuck it, let's go. Sold my truck, sold everything I had, and that got me break even. I had a $1,500 overdraft on my checking account. I'm like, yeah, she'll do. So used that to buy the ticket and did the backpacker life. Stayed in the hostels, drunk the goon. You know, goon in Australia is very cheap box wine, but it's amazing. But I, ran out of money. And so then I started my journey into sales, marketing, and business. It all started in Australia. My very first job was a call center run by the Australian mafia. Now, Australian, there's these folks called bikies. Wonderful guys, but they get into some interesting things. Just imagine sort of, an organized bike gang, and, they're involved in certain things that maybe a majority of people aren't involved in. So this call center, imagine Wolf of Wall Street, but way more scarier. You had to sell, close deals, or you're fired, obviously, and you had to come Friday nights to the penthouse office, do all the drugs, do all the things, or they'd fire you, or potentially sometimes, if someone didn't come to the office parties, they'd get drunk, the owners and the managers, they'd go to their place, rip them out of bed, and beat the fuck out of them. So that was my first foray into sales. Yeah, super smooth, right? That was pretty brutal. But one thing I did learn, I still remember it to this day. In Australia, all the sales guys, Wolf of Wall Street, they do coke. Coke is way too expensive in Australia, so in Australia they do meth. Crystal meth. Not fucking joking. So this one guy, he was new. He was new to me, but I think everyone else knew him. I think he came from another office. He sat down beside me one day, and I noticed every 30, 40 minutes he would go down in the basement, and I don't know if he was doing lines or smoking meth. I've never done meth. I don't know. It's ingested. It'd come back wired. And he sat down. One of his very first conversations I heard, and I was sitting beside him. He jumped on the phone, cold called somebody, and convinced them to charge $15,000 to their credit card within 10 minutes. I'm like, how the fuck? And then later that day, I'm on a call with somebody, and he could tell that I'm struggling handling objections, and the customer's just not having it. So he says, hey, stop everything and say exactly what I'm about to say. I'm like, okay, right. Well, I saw him do the 15th. Okay, what do you got? He started saying words to me, and I just started repeating them to this customer. And in my head, I'm like, this is fucking stupid. This is not going to work. And they did the Jordan Belfort Wolf of Wall Street thing. He says, stop talking. Okay, stop talking. Oh. Next thing the client says is, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's go for it. I'm like, what the fuck? How did he come up with some sort of magic spell? And the customer just said, yeah, I want to buy. And then from that day forward, I realized, I was good at talking, but I didn't have the sales structure, the sales skill, the sales ability, how to handle objections. Didn't know what people wanted to hear when they need to hear it. And so that day forward, I'm like, there's something to this. There's something to this sales thing. And then something crazy happened. One day I was doing a pitch, and the boss wheels by on this like hoverboard. When hoverboards were a big thing 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And he heard that I was getting off script, so he stopped me. He hung up the phone. He said, you have to eat that script. Print it out on a piece of paper. I said, what? He said, you got off script. You have to eat the paper now or get the fuck out. So, all my work friends were looking at me. I'm not eating the paper. He said, okay, get the fuck out. So I stood up. I started walking out. Before I got to the elevator, they pat me down, make sure there's no incriminating evidence or anything, scripts, and I leave. A week later, the police raided the place and arrested everybody. Now, I was a junior sales guy, like a backpacker, so we weren't doing any of the sketchy stuff. We were sort of doing appointment setting, but a lot of those guys got arrested, and it was one of the biggest police raids on that type of sketchy investment call center, Wolf of Wall Street type of thing for a very long time in Australia. But I did learn the magic of sales. And so I carried on traveling a bit, and I got to a point where I ran out of money again. And so then I had sort of two options. I was like, I want to go down to Melbourne, get a job, or I'm going to go volunteer at an Aboriginal center in the outback, like Alice Springs. If anyone knows Alice Springs, that was one of the options. And I got down to Melbourne. I did a few interviews, and they're all pitching me door knocking sales, door-to-door sales. I'm like, I don't want to do this. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take one more interview, one more. If they pitch me door to door, I'm going out to the outback, and I'm helping some Aboriginals and working at a supermarket or something. And I sat down, group interview, and this guy came up with this thick Mancunian accent, and he starts pitching me a damn fucking door to door job again. And so the interview finishes, and I'm like, but something was different. Something was different. I'm like, the guy's from Manchester. My dad's from Manchester, and his business partner, his last name's King. My last name's King. Something's going, maybe I should just. So I wait for everyone to leave, and he's like, hey, mate, so what are you doing? I said, look, I don't want to do the door to door thing, but have you ever wanted to build a call center? He said, yeah, let's do it. Long story short, that guy was Chris Diggle, by the way. And me, Chris, and a crack team, we scaled that nationally and did about $53 million in sales over the life of that. So that was fun. But while that was happening, something crazy happened. I got bored, and I moved to Africa, as you do. I moved to Africa, I moved to Uganda, and I was living in Kampala, half-time, and a refugee settlement in the west in Uganda. So I was working at a business development center in Uganda, and it's sort of cool, like Shark Tank. The local entrepreneurs would come, and I'd give my limited but interesting experience. I'd give them feedback on their business ideas and their business pitches. But something really fundamental happened in my life then. I met this guy, and he told me, this is 2017, he told me he's running Facebook ads, and he's selling things on Facebook with ads. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so he shows me, and he's profitable. He's got this massive office. And this random dude in Uganda figured out Facebook ads in 2017. Anyway, I'm like, can you teach me? He taught me the basics of Facebook ads. And, I wrapped up my stuff in Uganda, and then I moved to Egypt to study Arabic, as you do. And Egypt was an amazing time in 2017. But while I was there, I noticed something super interesting. The Egyptian economy wasn't doing very well. And so they didn't want people importing goods. They wanted Egyptians to export goods to improve the economy. And, the economy was up and down. So there's a younger generation that grew up on YouTube. And so they were obsessed with the American culture, the West. And so they would always buy things online. They didn't want to buy things in Egypt because they're lower quality. They wanted to buy the American stuff online. So I'm like, okay, what if I get this Facebook ads thing going? I run some ads, and I sell some American t-shirts. Now, who's in e-com or ever run digital marketing or ever run ads before? In 2017, advertising to Egyptians what my costs were. I was getting purchases for a few cents. Crazy. And by the way, back then, I thought it was saturated. So I started this e-com business, and I was selling, like t-shirts and clothes to Egyptians in Egypt through Facebook ads. And I was getting, purchase $5,000 a day was coming in. I'm like, this is absolutely fucking wild. A few logistical issues, definitely something that everyone has to run into eventually. I realized that marketing and sales is not the only thing in business. You have to worry about supply and logistics. One issue was that Egyptians didn't pay by card. They didn't trust online purchases. And so they did something called cash on delivery. And cash on delivery is you ship your stuff in, you get a courier, and the courier goes and delivers it to the person's address. The person grabs it, gives the cash to the courier brings it back to you. Lots of moving pieces there. Well, about 50% of the people saw the goods and didn't give the cash to the courier, or at least I was told. But we were so profitable that it didn't matter. Well, then something fucking crazy happened. The Egyptian government realized I was shipping in so much shit from China, and they shut the whole business down. So they're like, no, the economy, we need to export stuff, not import stuff. Done. So I phoned my old buddy Chris Diggle up. I say, hey man, what do you got going on in Australia? Can I come back? He's like, come on down, mate. So back in Australia, jumped into the old position, and Chris had scaled things up massively. They had a massive office warehouse type of deal going on all over the country. I believe you had a few offices over the country. I jumped straight back into operations and also jumped back into sales. But one thing happened to Chris. His installer fucked him. Every 70% of all our sales never got fulfilled. So imagine you're running a business, you put all that front-end cost into generating 100 sales, and only 30 of them ever get fulfilled and you get paid for. And so I sort of saw the writing on the wall. I'm like, all right, I got to sort of find the next move here. And so I called a buddy of mine, old sales consultant of mine, said, what do you got going on? He says, well, I started this solar company up in Byron Bay, Australia. For those who don't know, it's a beautiful, tiny little beach town. But they just wanted to start a business where they loved living. And he said, come on down. What would you do for us? And I said, have you ever wanted to start a call center? And so jumped in there, scaled that up within a year. That did 20 million in revenue, and that was great. But one thing that I was testing along the way, I thought back to my buddy in Uganda who taught me how to run Facebook ads, and a light bulb moment hit me. This is late 2017, early 2018, something around there. I thought, what if instead of selling t-shirts online with Facebook ads, you could generate leads? Now, lead gen on Facebook ads or digital marketing ads these days is like standard. Nobody was doing it back then. And so I launched my first lead gen campaign, and something fucking crazy happened. Took off. And so the wheels started turning in my head. Hold on. I can generate leads online. I can sell these leads, blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, what that ended up happening is I told Elliot, the owner of the company I was running the call center for at that time, hey man, I'm gonna go do my own thing. And so moved back down to Melbourne, started my own company for the first time, my real company, first ever, and went out. We were the first ever to run Facebook ads in the solar industry. We had the largest budget on Facebook by far. I don't know what the Americans were doing, but we were certainly in the Eastern Hemisphere the first to figure this out. And the whole office was remote. And that did very well for a while. However, I think as a few people mentioned here today, your first real business, you make no money. I don't know, profit, loss statements, margins. We were making money and I was spending it. That's all I knew, and we were having a good time. And that's not very sustainable, so that sort of starts dwindling down. So I call my old buddy Chris Diggle up again. Hey Chris, wait, what are you doing? He's like, yeah. Well, I got this company and I don't want it anymore. Do you want everybody? So I literally downsized the entire company, and like a wave, I just walked them into Chris's office, and he took over all the people and put them into his operation. Because I wanted to travel. I was bored. It's been a curse of mine for quite a while. So I want to travel the world. January 2020, I did my last continent, Antarctica. Got the last notch on the old tattoo. And wrapped up, and I'm thinking, what do I do next? And a few of my friends messaged me, and they're like, hey, you ever heard of Bali before in Indonesia? We're here. Let's come and make something happen. Let's figure something out. And so I flew over to Bali. A few weeks later, as we're, figuring out what to do here, something fucking crazy happened. COVID. 90% of the island left. Everything was shut down. But we realized something. We realized that door knocking became pretty much illegal in Australia, which is where we were selling solar. And so because we already figured out remote solar sales and lead gen through ads, there's no competition. And so we're like, let's just hunker down. And if anyone was here during COVID, you know that Bali was probably one of the best places to be in the world during COVID. It was a bit rough for a few weeks, but after that, it was amazing. And we crushed it for a year. No competition. Everyone was trying to figure out the remote sales game and digital marketing game for a while. Generated a few more $1 million there, but then something fucking crazy happened. My installers realized that I was outside of the country, and they started stealing all my equipment. So how it works in the solar industry is you ship out the equipment, the panels and everything, in front of the customer's property the night before, the morning before the install, and you just send your installers out there and they do the work. Well, all my installers realized I couldn't get back into the country to properly run the business, so they started stealing all my equipment and all my clients. So we started going downhill, and I had two options at that point. And I realized that I could wait it out, wait for the borders to open, try to figure out how to push through, or move the entire business over to the US. And I chose the latter. Moved the entire business over, lost everybody. No one could handle the time zone, and no one was willing to move physically over there. I moved physically over there, and we just crumbled, absolutely crashed. Back to zero, 100%. And then something fucking crazy happened. I looked around the US market and I realized that no one had figured out the remote sales game. No one had figured out the digital marketing, the lead generation game. And so I started jumping on the online forums and Facebook groups when they were really popping and sharing my experiences. And people were like, oh, that's not possible. Really? Can you do that? And I just started making training videos and doing webinars with people because people are just super interested in it. And that's right before the great wave of course selling started happening. So I naturally moved into that. I built a community, built courses, started selling courses and doing training and consulting for this very one thing. And it exploded. We did about 3 million, but that was profitable. I mean, anyone that's sold digital products before, margins are phenomenal. But then something fucking crazy happened. Does anyone know the app 23andMe? Yeah? So you spit in a jar, spit in a tube, you send it off to this company, and this company does an analysis on your blood work, tells you about genetics, and one other thing it does, it tells you about your family and your family tree. So if anyone else is spit in the tube and send it off to them, you can see, oh yeah, that person, my great-great-uncles, blah, 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 blah. So one day, I get a notification on my phone, 23andMe says, you have a new relative. I opened it up. I have an 8-year-old son in Australia that I didn't know about. Yeah. So I'm dealing with that. I've got this, education course platform going. And I told you that we did 2-3 million in revenue and it was super profitable. What I didn't tell you is that every single dollar I was profiting, I was a fucking idiot because I hadn't learned the lesson that every entrepreneur here needs to learn about shiny object distraction syndrome. And so in my genius brain, I thought, I'll just put all my money and build a software platform. And this will be the best software platform. And everyone will use it and it'll teach people and give them all the tools to sell solar remotely. And everyone wants to do that. And, a CRM and a dialer and everything. And I spent $1 million and a year and a half building this software platform and nobody used it. So side note, product market fit, guys, don't build to build to generate revenue, right? Crazy important lesson. So I'm break even at this point. I'm making money, but I'm putting it into the software. And then something fucking crazy happened. The industry went to shit. Various reasons, interest rates spiked, but also the new administration moved into the US and they cut the massive solar incentive that was driving the entire market. Everything I had built, my education platform, and we had 4,500 solar companies and sales reps signed up, paying us, all my software, everything I had built was built for people to sell solar. They had to be doing well to pay me for the tools. As soon as solar pretty much died, on the front end, I'm hooped. And I was one-to-one putting every dollar I had from the education platform into the software platform, and the software platform didn't even come close to being profitable. So there I was, pretty much zeroed out again, and the industry was dead. And so I had my team around us. We're like, what do we do? What do we do? And we're just testing, running ads on different products, and nothing was hitting. I shit you not, I'm not over-exaggerating. My last $100 in my account, my last $100, something fucking crazy happened. I put that $100 into this new product thing that we sort of stumbled upon and we didn't know it was going to work, and boom, took off. Craziest ad campaign I've ever run in my life. And I talked to the handful of guys on my team. I'm like, I think we fucking got something. Within 3 months, we generated $1 million in revenue. Fastest growing company in revenue-wise I've ever had in my entire life. We were doing amazing. We were creating a new market entirely. Oh, and then something fucking crazy happened. The former Attorney General of Alabama stole $350,000 from us. Attorney Generals in the US are like the lead attorney of the state. Long story short, we were paying him to fulfill for clients. We have about 150 clients, and one day he said, I'm not doing any of these clients, thanks for money, I'm gone, you can't do anything. The issue was not just the 350,000. The issue is the 150 clients came back to us all asking for refunds, and I had already paid every single one of my sales reps the commissions. I didn't want to claw back. I didn't want to do anything. So we were down about $650,000. At that point, you sort of have two options, right? Everyone around me was saying, sue him, sue him, sue him, go after him, go for blood. But there's a little voice in the back of my head. I'm like, just fucking figure it out. I think Chris said, if you don't get to where you're going, it's your fault, nobody else's. So the thing in the back of my head, I'm like, just figure it out and keep pushing, keep persevering. Don't stop and have this thing, build up inside you, go intact. Fucking figure it out and keep going. And so that's what we did. By the end of 2025, we generated $5 million profitably. We got past potentially the biggest hurdle I've ever had in my entire career. Someone literally stealing over $500,000 from us, but instead of going, stopping and giving up and saying fuck you and suing him, which would have, killed the entire company, we just kept going. But then, at the end of the year, we're set, ready to crush 2026. We are skyrocketing on a fucking rocket. And then something really fucking crazy happened. My mother died in January. And when you have a parent die, you again have two choices. One is curl up in a little ball. Everyone around you is telling you, just take some time off. Just chill. You don't have to push yourself so hard. You have every excuse under the sun just to relax. But there's that little voice in the back of my head that just doesn't fucking shut up. And it said, just keep going. And after everything I've said so far, which option do you think I chose? I kept going. I turned what, maybe some would experience as negative emotion into pure, unadulterated motivation. And I'd never worked harder in my life. And as of August 2026, that same company is now on a $30 million run rate. So I think I made the right decision. There's a lot of things you can take from that, but three things I want to highlight. First is the phrase I mentioned before. Perseverance doesn't guarantee success. It doesn't. There is a possibility that you just keep going and you never succeed, never hit your goal. However, giving up guarantees failure. It's very black and white. The second thing is, when you are faced with those decisions, just stop. Stop, run, give it all, for example. Or keep going. Just know that you'll look back on the decisions that you make. And sometimes when you have that dark energy, something really bad has happened to you, you want to slow down. There is a way to convert that energy into motivation instead, to keep moving forward. And when you look back at your life, you have to ask yourself this question. Did I make the right decision to move forward? Or was it the right decision to stop and slow down? And I'm weird, I like to watch the YouTube videos of the 100-year-old retirees, and they ask them, what do you regret in life? They never, ever say anything that they did. They always say things that they didn't do. And so that always rings true for me. And if you need another motivation, the last thing I'll imbue is there's a lot of idiots out there, right? They don't have good work ethic. They're not super skilled. They're not super intelligent. But if you put that same decision that you have in front of you of giving up or pushing harder, no matter what the pain is, there's going to be some idiot out there that's far less skilled than you, that has far less experience than you, that just chooses the pain, pushes through it, and ends up infinitely more successful than you. And that's not a good feeling to have. Because then you see these guys are morons, but they're so much more successful than you. It's very likely the only reason they're at where they are at is because they chose the pain and you didn't. So sometimes pain is good. Perseverance does not guarantee success, but giving up guarantees failure. Thanks. And thanks very much for Dan for run and give it all. It's been wonderful to speak and do headlining. Thanks very much, guys. Cheers.